Hello there. I'm here with Colin Smart of TSG Associates. If you haven't come across them, TSG have been providing smart solutions for life-saving medical equipment since 1993, I believe, Colin.
Thereabouts, must be close.
So you've been creating, amongst other things, amongst other products, triage kits for use in emergency scenarios, emergency situations for many, many years. So tell us what's new about the latest kit that you've developed.
Great. Good morning, all, and thank you for inviting me to this interview. So what's new? Well, in the UK, triage is changing a little bit, and a lot of that change has been driven by some of the findings from the Manchester Arena report.
Right.
What we found happened in Manchester, and sometimes happened in other instances as well, is that it can take a period of time for the emergency services to actually enter the scene. And that can be for various reasons. It could be limited access to the scene, potential future dangers, like maybe a secondary device that could explode on them. There's lots of reasons there where we can't just get the full-time ambulance service into the scene as quick as possible. When you're seriously injured, time is very important. We always try to get seriously injured people from point of injury to what we'd call definitive care, which is basically the surgery table, where we can give the final care that they need to save their life in the smallest time period possible. And every time we take slightly longer to do that, the less chance we've got of having maximum survival. So what we're trying to do, if there is a delay of getting emergency services in, what we're trying to do is empower the people who are already on scene. Like, could be police firearms officers, maybe fire service, it could be the security guards. We're trying to empower them with a number of skills that can allow them to administrate life-saving interventions. And that's been driven by things outside of triage at the moment, like hemorrhage control, very much taken from the battlefield. It's the one significant intervention we can do to take somebody from a possible life-threatening scenario and make a difference by doing good hemorrhage control. Simple airway management is another one of those things that the bystander can do to do an intervention. But the other thing, and the drive with the new triage coming at the moment, is to create a system that will empower first responders to be able to prioritize people. And what I mean is, when we're talking about prioritization, is if we have maybe 20 people injured at maybe a bus crash or something, not all of them are time critical. There may be maybe 10 or 12 of them that we'd class as priority threes, where they maybe have small injuries, but they're always going to live. And there might be a group of people in the middle that have got more significant injuries, but immediately they're not life-threatening. But they're people we really want to get to quickly and put the resources into what we'd call priority one people. And these are people who have got life-threatening, time-critical injuries, which means we need to get to them first. We need to get the right resources to them, but we also need to recognize who those people are. And that's what triage does. What the UK is building at the moment, outside of the work we're doing, we will support the flowcharts that are being developed by the clinicians, but they are developing a flowchart that the first responder on scene can put people into those triage categories. So that's the big change. What we've got to do is try and understand how we can then basically, if we're going to empower those people to do early triage with the flowcharts that have been developed, how can we give them a set of tools that can make them functional?
Yeah.
And we're always looking to innovate into clinical gaps where we think the response isn't as good as it could be. And we looked at what was out there for first responders at the moment, and we didn't believe it was as good as it should be, and it was probably not as functional as it should be. Hence, we've created the new triage first responder kits and the new triage sticks that I'll talk about in a little bit more detail.
So what are the challenges with the current systems being used? Because there's some form of tagging happening right now, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you could call it tagging, you could call it labeling. Basically, what you're trying to do is put some sort of communications to someone to say that I have made this assessment, and this assessment said you were a number 1. We need to see you now. 2, got a little bit more time, or 3, we think you're okay. And there's color codes to those as well. The problem is, and the first problem is, for any system to work, the actual tools that you're going to use have got to get to the scene. So they've got to be actually with the person who's going to turn up. Now, if you take something like a police firearms officer, they will only carry the equipment they need to do their job. And if being some form of medical intervention is secondary, it's very difficult for them to carry any additional equipment, because every time they carry something additional to their prime role, it becomes more difficult for them to be police firearms officers, because everything is about speed, agility, being fairly light and moving fast. So if we give them a big bit of kit, there's no way they can carry it. Same if it's a firefighter, they'll be taking in the equipment to take, to get people from trapped environments, from fire environments. And if you give them something additional, which is not that easy to carry, they've got no way to carry it, because their sole resources and their carrying capacity is driven towards their primary task. So the problem is, at the moment, if you look at the tagging system, which is the tagging system we produce, so I think it's quite a good one, but it's just slightly too big for what those people need. And they're never going to carry it because it's not exactly what they do. So that then says, what other options are available? The standard option at the moment is these things called slapper bands. And this presently is a solution that's being pushed for maybe the first responders to carry. But the idea behind these,
in a kid's party bag or something.
It is. It's a kid's thing, and the idea behind them is that you come up, you put them on, and that can label the person.
Right.
Now, there's various downfalls to this, and we don't believe it is the way forward. The first thing is, they're actually not small. So if you can imagine, if you're a firearms officer or a police or a firefighter or a security guard, there's really no way to carry something like this. So that's the first problem. If you can't carry the equipment to the scene, your system breaks down at the start point, because the equipment's not there. So yes, you do your triage process, but how do you label them? Well, these were left in the car, so that the whole system stops. So we've got to work out a way where we can give you a system that's got all the functionality that we need, but will always turn up, because it's practical enough that it's going to be embedded with the person it's designed. The other thing is, when you're looking at triage systems, if you look at the current tagging system, which is a smart tag that we do for every ambulance service in the UK, part of its sort of functionality is it's a highly visible tag, but it's highly visible because it dangles, not actually due to its size, although the size does help, but it hangs off your wrist so you can always see it. When you put something like one of these bands on place, they can disappear. They can go over clothing. They actually can fall out, of many trials have shown. They're just not visible enough. If you can think about working in bad light, high stress, they're not visible enough. So visibility is a large thing. Functionality is a bit of a problem, because they don't always stay on, and if something will fail, going to multiple casualty scenarios is where it will fail. Yeah. These are very unforgiving events. So where's the system failing at the moment? The system is failing because the present equipment that we certainly evaluated was an inappropriate size to be carried by the people that we want to carry it. It just was not practical for them to do that. It had fairly low visibility, so its ability to communicate the triage decision that we made was limited. And we thought the functionality, especially when people are wearing big gloves. And the other thing you've also got to consider, when emergency services are on these scenes, we do lose the ability of our fine motor skills, because there's so much adrenaline often flooding through your system. It's very hard to do the fine tasks. So unless we can create something that can function with big gloves and loss of fine motor skills, then it won't function. And we believe the present systems were deficient at various levels on those three areas. So therefore we thought, right, okay, can we do better to get into that space?
Yeah, I mean, it's remarkably simple. It's as you explained it, it seems baffling why it doesn't already exist.
It does, and it's funny, with the solution we came up with, which I'll show you in a second. It is ridiculously simple, but it took me about 5 months to work it out.
Yes.
Because what you're trying to do is build all the functionality into your system, but when something that is with an acceptable size, that the the groups of people that we talked about can actually carry. And that has taken a long time to think through. We think we've come up with a solution. Yeah. And the feedback we've got from everybody that we've been shown to within the customers we deal with, I've gone, oh, that works. So
it takes a real understanding of the process and what it's like on the ground doing these jobs.
Yeah.
It obviously doesn't end with, we talk about kind of first responders, but people who are who need medical assistance will then be passed on to other areas of the emergency response, emergency services. So how does this new system fit in with systems that will be used kind of elsewhere in the medical process?
So let me show you what we did first, and then I'll show you how it fits with the existing systems. Right. And because you're right, it's very important. The first responder system doesn't sit in its own silo. It's got to be very complementary to, as the emergency services or the ambulance service do arrive, then it's got to be complementary to them bringing their system in, and then even further complementary as the more sophisticated communication systems comes in to communicate all the information that these systems generate. So what is it we did, and what was a eureka? I suppose every inventor has a eureka moment to work out how it's going to actually happen. And I was start thinking about it, and I was looking at what people like firearms officers carry medically at the moment, and firefighters carry at the moment. And everybody carries a thing called a tourniquet now. And that is basically something you wrap, if you've got life-threatening bleeding, you wrap it around a limb, you twist it, and basically, if you can think of it a bit like a leaking pipe, it turns the tap off. And that has been proven through the last 15 years of military operations to be an absolutely 100% life-saving tool, to the point that every emergency service responder, most security guards, a lot of first aiders will have access to tourniquets. They're an absolute given to saving life and life-threatening hemorrhage. But the fact is, the tourniquet size can be carried by the firefighters and the police services and people like security guards. And to carry them in two ways. If you look, if you ever look at a firearms officer, maybe at an airport, they'll be wearing body armor.
Yep.
And on the body armor, you'll see these little pouches.
Yep.
Just with my water. And inside that pouch is a tourniquet. So you can see this would fit into this pouch. So if they can carry something this size, if we could make something similar, then we've got a good chance that they can attach something similar to them to arrive on scene. The other way they carry equipment is they have little pouches like this, which is what they'd call an individual first aid kit, which gives them a tourniquet, some quite specialized dressings that are good at stopping bleeding, and packing gauze, things to pack cavities that you would find at scenes of explosions. So they carry kits like this as well. So what we said is, if we can find something that's got all the functionality but could fit into these two systems, then we've got a chance of this thing turning up. So what did we come up with? We came up with the idea of a thing called a triage stick. And this is a triage stick. It's made from plastic, so it's 100% durable. So you can throw anything at it, it's going to survive. But the key to it working is that it dangles. So when it dangles, it's got high visibility. But why will it work for the emergency responder? Is that it's the same size as a tourniquet. So what we can now do, what we can now do is build a triage system on that size, because we're not compromising functionality because of size. Sometimes that's a problem. Sometimes people go ultra lightweight, but it doesn't work because it's too small and it's too fiddly. What we've got is good functionality with lots of fine motor skills, good level of communications, 100% durability, the ability to record key information if we need to. But we can also build it into systems. So this is the SmartTag triage stick for the first responder. And then what we can then do is then build it into a system called the SmartTriage First Responder system. And the idea of this, on the outside, there'll be the algorithm of how to do triage, which we're just developing that at the moment. But on the inside, you'll have the different colored tags, which are all subdivided in the colors. But the key is that something this size can fit onto the body armor. So what we now have is the ability to embed a triage system with the people of the people who's required to actually use it. If they don't want to carry it on a triage, on a next to the clinic and the body armours, when they've got their individual first aid kits, again, they fit perfectly into there as well.
Yeah.
So what we're managing to do is build in, will it turn up on scene? Well, it's an appropriate size, so it will. Will it communicate the decision? Yes, because it dangles and it's a reasonably good visibility. Mm. Will it work with loss of fine motor skills? Yes, because there's nothing fiddly about it. And is it durable enough? It's 100%, it's a plastic product, completely white clean. So we've got that durability. So it fits all the criteria that we need. You started with the question, and I've gone around the way of handling is how does it comply with what's already at the moment? So if we can imagine a patient or a casualty has been tagged with that already, using the new triage systems for first responders, as the ambulance crews come up with the more sophisticated systems, what happens now is that we've got a level of information recorded on this, and all we have to do is put this into this, so we maintain the information that we've got. And then the ambulance service can now continue with what they're doing with more sophisticated assessments and treatment, but we haven't lost what the actual ambulance service did on scene, or sorry, the first responder did on scene. That works on scene, gives good continuity of care, but I think also very importantly, after the incident, there's usually an inquiry, and when we have to justify what we did, we can now see a series of when was this first person triaged, yes. What were the details of that triage, when was the handover, and when was the next level of triage commenced. So it gives us also an evidence trail as well of how we justified what we did to that individual patient and how we made those assessments. That's obviously good for the legal inquiry, but it's also good for medical research that we can start to look at what happened and work out is the best, do we need to adjust what we're doing, or is what we're doing good enough at the moment as well. So it gives us a little bit of research to work on as well. So yeah, that's the way the system works really. As I say, ridiculously simple, but it did take a ridiculous amount of time to think about it. But it's really just providing the first responders with a very, very simple tool, but it's complementary to the decision flow charts that they'll be asked to use in the very near future. And very much going back to what I talked before is reducing that care gap. So before the emergency services turn up on scene, they may have had already the hemorrhage stemmed by the equipment, the training they've got, and they've probably already been prioritised. So the management of that individual and the multiple patients is already progressing before we get on scene. So the time from point of injury to good care is being reduced, and ultimately that reduces maximum survivors.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, congratulations. It's a product that could really save lives out there ultimately, which is I know there's the driving force behind everything that you and TSG work on.
Thank you.
And it's when you see a product that has been thought through in that way to look so effortlessly simple, it is really fantastic. So where are we at with the product stage? Is it available to buy now? Can customers place orders? Is it still in prototype? Where are we with it?
Yeah, it's very, very close to hitting the market. We're looking to go to market in April 23. Mm-hmm. We finalised the designs. Importantly, we filed all the intellectual protection on it. Always important when you're a designer. We've got a couple of small parts of commercialisation, and importantly, we're now putting the collateral in place for the marketing campaigns for it. We're now contacting the key customers within our market segments to make them aware. So this will be into market probably within 4 to 6 weeks. So we're well along we're pretty much finished the development phase, and we're fast tracking into the commercialization phase at the moment.
Yeah, and they'll be available separately as the SmartTag triage stick, or as the entire system, the triage kit responder.
Yeah. And I think that's important. We'll never force you to buying a pouch. Everybody's got lots of pouches. So if you've got a pouch that works, absolutely go for it. If our pouch works for you, that's good. But the sticks themselves will be individual as well. So you can buy them as an individual units.
Fantastic. And so if someone, as you're watching this, you'd like to know more about this new system, how would you, where should people go to get more information, Colin?
There's probably a couple of points of contact. I think the best one is always the website, which is tsgassociates.co.uk. We're very active on LinkedIn. That's probably the second point of contact to get hold of us. If you keep an eye on our LinkedIn page, and there'll be various links to the product as it gets moving. Or obviously, again, if you go to the website, all of our phone numbers and all of our contact details are on the website as well. So I suppose the website is always the primary point of contact. There'll be a lot of information in the next 4 to 6 weeks going up on the website about the product. As I say, LinkedIn or just give us a call and we're happy to arrange. And again, if anybody wants to either arrange a visit with one of us or do a virtual demonstration with you, which we do an awful lot of these days, then more than happy to get that arranged.
Yes, this virtual studio you've got where you can demonstrate the product is really fantastic. So
thank
you so much for your time, and really appreciate you taking me through this really exciting development, and all the best with the launch of the product.
Thank you, Will. I appreciate your time today. Thank you very much.